happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are having an amazing, as best you can, weekend. I hope that you are safe as well. Still been a really kind of week this week. I know I have felt it. I know many of you have felt it. But, it's taken us about 2 weeks to deal with how we're feeling about things and to make plans and to try and secure our future and make our future as clean, green, safe and equitable as possible for both ourselves and for other people. And so we are back with a more eclectic, more positive Sunday musing this week. And in it, I want to talk to you about access to charging stations. So many states in the US, increasingly in fact, are starting to toy with the idea of making EV charging a right that everybody should have access to an EV charging station, regardless of where they live. So if you live in your own home, obviously it's very easy generally, unless you live in a listed home in the UK or Europe. It's generally pretty easy to get charging infrastructure installed for your own house, especially if you have your own driveway or your own garage. Obviously, if you live in apartments, condos, duplexes, whatever you want to call them, anything that has more than one family living in a building, it can sometimes be more difficult, right? It can sometimes be a bit of a nightmare, especially if you rent, for you to get access to charging. I know that 2 people who work at this channel struggle to get charging for their plug-in vehicles because they live somewhere, even though one of them lives in Oregon, one of them is in Washington, even though the one that lives in Oregon technically under law has a right to have access to EV charging. The law is so vague and so kind of wishy-washy that the actual costs associated could be pretty high if passed on, and that puts people off. I know it's put them off. I know it would probably put me off as well. The idea that, if you are going to be in a position where you are looking at getting an EV and the rental place where you're living is somewhere that is a transitory abode, i.e. you'll probably stay there 1 year, maybe 2 years, and then who knows, maybe the rent goes up and it's too expensive and you have to move elsewhere. I know that is common for a lot of people who rent. It was common for me when I rented. I was lucky. I was able to stay in the same place. When we moved to the US, we got into one place and we were lucky enough to be able to afford to deal with the rent increases. And when we moved out to here, we were lucky. I know if we move in the future, which, who knows what the future holds, we may end up living somewhere where rent is incredibly expensive and we may not want to invest in installing charging stations. Like I say, I was lucky. The place we rented in downtown Hillsborough, it had a NEMA 1430, I think. It was about a 30 amp breaker and it allowed us to use a level 2 charging station, which made life so much easier for us. But not everyone is in that position. Not everyone can deal with that and has that as an option. So I want to know from you if you think more states, more local cities, more local communities should, enact laws, whether it's local ordinances or something, larger scale, that says EV charging is something that everybody should have access to. Now, I know California and some other states have become really, really forward thinking. I know that Washington State, for example, has requirements for new builds, but if it's existing builds, not so much. And I can't think of any state, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't think of a state where the costs associated with installing a charging station are capped somehow. And I've heard some really horrible stories of unscrupulous landlords picking the most expensive EV charging station they possibly can for their quote and making it a point of making that EV charging station so impossibly expensive to install or complicated that the person with the EV who rents from them just goes, you know what, screw it, I'm done. And I know from friends in the UK that a lot of people who live in the UK, especially those who live in the country, tend towards renting private homes because they're more likely to get a garage, they're more likely to get a 13 amp, 240 outlet in the garage that they can use to plug their EV in. Of course, if you live in a country where 240 volts as opposed to 110 or 120 is the norm, it makes it easier for you to get an EV charger and just use a regular household plug. Might not be safe long term, but it's a stopgap measure. Whereas here in North America, where everybody is 110 volts in their standard household outlets, it can be really difficult to charge an EV, especially if you have a larger, less efficient EV, which of course more EVs are becoming less efficient, larger, and use more power to go a set distance. So I would love to know if you would like to see that become a legal requirement. We have legal requirements for other things. Obviously, with the incoming Trump administration, we can expect a lot of rollbacks on EV provision and support. But as I'm about to say in a video that's due to drop tomorrow, and I think hopefully this will be the last of the election-related videos. We've done a lot lately, but it's been good from a cathartic release point of view to kind of look at the situation and go, okay, what is actually possible? What is likely to happen? Also to be kind of pretty forthright in calling out Elon Musk for some of his nonsense. All of that is on our channel right now, or will be by the end of Sunday if you're a Patreon supporter. Drop tomorrow if you're on the main channel and you're not a Patreon supporter. But I'd love to know your thoughts on what you would do to try and make it easier for people to have access to EV charging at home. Because, we spend a lot of time thinking about fast charging and putting fast charging in, but really, if everybody was given access to level 1 or level 2 charging in their homes or at where they live, then we wouldn't need to be spending millions of dollars on fast charging infrastructure. If everybody started their day with a full battery, full tank, we wouldn't have to worry about that as much, would we? I mean, I don't think so. And I know a lot of people who feel the same way. So let me know your thoughts in the doobly down below. I will be back next week. I'm not going to lie, it is difficult right now for us to continue to produce content at the speed that we have been producing it. There's a lot going on in my personal life that I'm unable to discuss right now for reasons of safety. But let's just say that the last couple of weeks have been tough, have been difficult, and some people will cheer that. But we're going to do our best to keep up with our production schedule and to keep making content. Hopefully it won't be raining next week when we do this, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got some thoughts, make sure you leave them in our Discord chat room, our Patreon page, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of the more than 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can remain 100% independent. If you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers that you can sign up for from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just over $10 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters: Alan Brim, Jim, Sarah Horlock, full name, Todd Johnson, Roderick, Stuart Despain, Rupert Ronson, Larry Phoenix, Darla, Wendy Kelly Bundenbaum, and Kay. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll also find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have a good old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at, address also linked below. And of course, if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store in the down below. We've also got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we also think this one is well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving!